Hello, and welcome back to my channel. And today we are playing Case of Distrust. This just came out last week, and it's indie game, a detective game in which we are solving a murder in somewhere in the United States. I'm pretty sure it will clear the whole story out during the 1920s. First point of order, I love the music. I mean, this is gorgeous. I could just listen to this all day. But yeah, let's take a look at Case of Distrust. Also, the visuals are really nice. I awoke in my desk. Oh, here? Across from me were his piercing amber eyes. They surprised me at first, but I should have known he'd be there. Seriously, just listen to this. Beautiful. I stretched and said, mid-yawn, "Not very nice to sneak into a sleeping woman's apartment." But his stare just continued. Laughed at his glare, cursed the open door. I laughed. I laughed at his glare. I'd seen San Francisco's rude thugs, hardened cops, and deadly politicians, but none could ever match that gaze. I knew I didn't have what he wanted. Reaching into my coat, I took out my knife and flicked it open. I gave him the knife. I held the knife steady. I held the knife steady while staring back at him. "Look," I said, nodding towards the desk. "That's all there is. Take it or leave it." But a detective knows when she's beat, and I knew then. He wanted to search the place, and that's what he would do. I sighed, knowing my weakness for his type. "All right," I said, "let's look." Oh, it was a kitty cat. He let out a gleeful meow in victory. I cut a piece of my apple that the cat had rejected. "Always the sore winner," I jabbed. But I was smiling too, because I was telling the truth. There was absolutely no other food in my apartment. The cat often dropped by to scavenge. He made a lot of noise when he thought I was holding out on him. But right now, the place was clean, empty, no food anywhere. I had to prove it to him. "Hello, cat." The cat had waltzed into my apartment a few years earlier. He kept coming back, though there was rarely a morsel to eat. He'd continue his loud meowing until I proved him the place was empty of food. Okay, I probably won't talk to the cat right now. Ooh, notes. I like that. My old notebook. I wonder if my voice is going to hold through all the game, talking like this. We'll give it a try. Now filled to the brim, I wrote everything down, even the minor details. Never know what can be useful. First half had my old cases, details from the beats I used to walk in my policewoman days. Of course, policewomen were forbidden from going on patrol, but Lewis often overlooked that rule. What else? Those cigarettes? Packaged cigarettes were the latest trend, but I still preferred to roll my own. The ashtray was evidence that it was a practiced skill. I suppose I had a lot of free time back then. I kept a small statue underneath a side table. It had been police evidence in a crime, and its owner hadn't wanted it back. I took a shine to it, so I snagged it for myself on my way out of the department. The lamp had belonged to my Uncle Louis. He'd been an SFPD officer, one who argued policewomen could be good detectives, even while the others jeered at me. I knew he'd been right, but my current workload didn't help that claim. I thought about Louis. I tried not to. I tried not to think about Louis. I was lousy at handling the emotions behind those thoughts. Right? What do we have there? I had taken copies of old murder cases from the SFPD records when I'd left. I loved reading through them, even though my own contributions were minimal. At that time, I longed for those types of jobs. The truth was, any work was hard to find for a female detective. Oh, the Times. Hello? A newspaper was flopped on the floor, its headline about the death of Lenin, leader of the Red Menace, sweeping Russia. It seemed the Bolsheviks had lost their heads. And here's something. The regular white icebox, tinged yellow with age, half-blocked the kitchen doorway. My income rarely kept much stocked in it, and right now it was empty. Notes. What do we have notes? There are no cases just then, but the cat was mewing and needed attention. I had to contradict the cat by first talking to him, then pointing to a piece of evidence in my notebook that proved the apartment was empty of food. Show the cat there's no food. Okay. The cat would continue his insistent meowing until I proved him. Yeah. Evidence. Do I have any evidence? There's that Islam ashtray icebox. Yeah. Statements. Ooh, I like this. Beautiful, simple mechanics. Okay, now let's talk to the cat. It doesn't matter how doe-eyed you are, cutie pie. I have no food around, I told him. He licked his chops and looked at me. Apparently, he still didn't believe that. I needed to contradict him somehow, to show him something in the apartment that would prove it was empty of food. Okay, contradict, and now we click the evidence icebox. Used to contradict. I opened the icebox so the cat would see inside. Empty, I told him. The cat looked quizzically at the open door, then back at me. Sorry, fella, there's no grub in there for me either. He stared at me with the eyes as disappointed as I felt. Those big yellows always got to my soul. Thoughts of my family filled my head. My sister parents, but never mind. My sister Muriel had sent a letter with an update of her life in Chicago. She and her husband had just purchased a new home outside of the bluster of the city. Their 3 young children were looking forward to the move. I'd never told Muriel, but those letters I mostly ignored get me going. Hearing about my family, however remote, helped me cope with the isolation I was feeling. I'd refused to accept it myself back then, but perhaps Muriel had known anyway. My sister had the extraordinary lifestyle that I had rejected. Had the ordinary lifestyle. I wanted to change the world to save myself. Change the world? I'd wanted to change the world, to bring justice for the victims, especially the ones who no longer had a voice. Not that I was helping advance that cause with the types of cases coming my way. My mind spiraled into the usual series of questions. Had I even impacted the women's movement? Had I made any change in society at all? Was my plodding career worth losing traditional happiness? What was the point in life I had chosen? A loud meow from the cat snapped me back into the moment. I took a deep breath and grinned back at him. Guess you can scram now, I said. Nobody's going to come knocking with food for you, fella. Somebody came knocking. There immediately came a banging on the front door. Beyond a nuisance, this cat was a psychic too. You order out? I asked him. Opened the door. In the doorway was a regrettably familiar face of Connor Green. Stared at him, looked past him. His company churned my stomach. Oh, well, let's just stare. I stared at him, a hired hand for whomever needed a job done, but Green snitched whenever he was put in a squeeze. Working the beats, I remembered that all too well. Remarkably, the underground had been blind to it, but Green wasn't particularly assiduous. Assiduous? I was certain that criminal ranks would eventually block him. He looked at me through the doorway with a coy smile. Well, ain't you gonna invite me inside? I have no idea, by the way, of the American accents or accents in general, so I'm just gonna go with the flow. Let him through, started closing the door. Yeah, I started closing the door, but he stuck out a foot to stop me. Hey now, he chided. Foul way to treat a customer, Malone. So that was his angle, hiring me as a detective. I wondered what a bootlegger would need with a private eye, but he answered without my prompt. I'll make this quick. I can't take this to the hog house or the pigs would laugh me out. And other dicks just aren't as tempting. His grin widened. Thought this was gonna be quick, I said, and started rolling a cigarette. It wasn't quick, and I'd already rolled and lighted a second smoke when Green finally finished his story. I noted the important bits in my book. It started with a letter slipped under his door in a white envelope. Oh, these graphics are absolutely gorgeous. Simple and beautiful. The envelope contained a single typewritten leaf, which he handed to me. It read, End your game or we'll end you. It had no signature, instead ending with only a small scribble in the bottom of the right corner that resembled a black hand. Had a lead on a new rum running scheme, a connection from Vancouver. He'd given a sample to Tiny Paul and the gangster who ran a Tintin Spoon speakeasy for mob boss Jerry Ferry. Funny name. They'd agreed to buy in for more. Green surmised the letter was about his rum running. He suspected Redstone Stable, another bootlegger, of sending the letter. He told me that Stable ran a barber shop during the day and gave me the address. Green needed to know who the threat was from. He'd get Paul's gang to deal with them and continue his scheme to get rich. If I go snooping myself, he concluded, folks see I'm not trusting people. No trust leads to no customers. I need to play low-key, which is where you come in. I raised an eyebrow and stared at him through the cigarette smoke. Something in his yarn was still twisted. Yeah, twisted. He must have noticed my reticence, because he said, You know, I work closely with Lewis. I'm sure he'd want to protect me as much as any other victim. My uncle. Lewis had put me on the force. I'd finally accepted Lewis's death. I was still searching for answers. I was still searching for answers after his death. He'd been a man obsessed with helping victims and bringing justice to those beyond salvation. With that ethos, I never understood how he could have taken his own life. Those thoughts haunted me. I'd quit the SFPD and started my own practice, taking his philosophy. Was Green worthy of my time? Would he be worth Lewis's? Green had tipped off my uncle in a few cases. I wondered if that was enough to warrant my protection. Before I could think past my headache, he threw a bill in my lap. Keep the C note as a retainer. I don't worry about getting it in touch. And don't worry, I'll find you later with a chat. For a chat. I can't read today, apparently. He turned down the hallway and I let him go. If he was willing to give me $100 with no commitment, I wouldn't stop him. I turned back to the apartment, still confused about the whole story. My headache wasn't helping either. Whenever I lacked clarity, a trip to Southern Coffee was usually the cure. I'd mounted a cold plate outside that read, P.C. Malone, Private Investigator. Southern Coffee. There was only one place I needed to go to clear my head. Southern Coffee was a basement dive. It wasn't modern, hip, or even busy, and it was my favorite place to down some paint, especially in the company of the best bartender in the city. Go here. Yeah. Again with the music. I grabbed the taxicab and told the driver where I wanted to go. I thought about talking with him on our way. No, we don't talk to taxi drivers. I peered out of the window until we arrived. Southern Coffee was an automat diner. Ethel Burgess, lone waitress, was friendly to help with any inquiry. Of course, if you winked at her right, she'd show you the way to the downstairs toilet, where Frankie played bathroom attendant. Southern Coffee had a distinct feeling of home. The familiar smell of mold in that old basement was enough to put a grin on my face. Hello, Frankie. Frankie tended the bar at Southern Coffee. Though it wasn't his place, I'd never got a whiff of the real owners. They trusted Frankie to do what he did best. I said, "Hello, Frankie," and was met with a smile and grunt from Franklin Ernest Conway. This big fella had been a decent pitcher. He was a fantastic orator. Let's go with the first one. He was a big fella, both wide and tall. He must have been a little over 50. He had a round head, kind brown eyes, and a cropped ring of gray hair encircling an otherwise bald scalp. His voice had a warm timbre that complemented the tobacco and whiskey smells of the speakeasy. I sat at the bar. "You got the spooks, PC?" he asked. "You're worn as Catcher's mitt." I suppose my exhaustion showed. "I won $100 for nothing, and I can't let it go." I told Frankie about the case, the threatening letter sent to Connor Green, how he assumed it was related to his bootlegging, and his suspicion of the Redstone stable. The story took longer than I had wanted, Frankie showing genuine interest by asking many questions. When I finished, he threw me the whiskey sour he'd been stirring. I took a large gulp and gave a sigh as thanks. "Well, Green's case is better than most of what you've given," he said with some enthusiasm. "At least it's not more than adultery bunk." "Sure," I said, "but I studied with a goal in mind. What's the point in helping a man like Green?" Frankie clicked his tongue on his teeth. "Lawyer or priest, why does it matter? Let me ask you, are the clients you have now the types you want to help?" I admitted they weren't. I told him that I wanted more from my detecting life. "It could be that Green's case shoots your career forward, Malone," I sighed and stared down at my drink. But my daze was interrupted by the basement door opening, then slamming shut. A small, blustering woman came marching towards me. She looked younger than 25 and was a few inches shorter than my 5'6". I thought her grey trench coat was too large for that small frame, which was when I realized it was exactly like the one that had belonged to Lois. She hurled insults at me a while. All I could do was sit and take it until she ran out of gas and started breathing heavily. I set my drink on the bar and looked her in the eye. I stared at hello and studied her features, turned away. Let's study her features a little bit more. I studied her features more thoroughly. It was plain she was a knockout, now that she'd finished shrieking. Beyond the latest blush and lipstick, he had the natural soft skin and bright eyes perpetually desired by the opposite sex. While I was eyeing her, she caught her breath and started with her tirade. I am the wife of the bum who sneaks into your bed. The cat? I asked. The cat? But humor wasn't her angle, and she launched into another poetic stanza. And he just left your sty this morning, he finally ended. And that was when I gathered she was Connor Green's wife. Mrs. Green, I am a PI, not a homewrecker, and I don't think your husband, in his line of business, would want to bet a dick anyhow. Her look was pure incredulity. Credulity? Yeah. A woman in that line of work? She questioned. I don't believe it. Do I want to prove it? Yeah, let's prove it. Connor Green just gave me a case that involved it wasn't. Okay, do I have any evidence? Yeah. The day before he came to me. Yeah, let's show the letter. I told her about why Connor had come to me, the bootlegging and the threats. You see, Mrs. Green, this is what I do. There's not much more I can show you to prove it. It still took more coaxing for her to believe me, but eventually she came around. She seemed grateful I'd explained it to her. Apparently, she had seen her husband leave my apartment and, distraught, she had followed me all the way to Frankie's basement and decided to confront me. I suppose I lost my head after what I thought I'd seen, she said, and she began to cry. Frankie, ever chivalrous to a dimpled girl, came around the bar and held her up. No, that's all right, Mrs. Green. Why don't I hail you a cab and send you back home? She agreed, and they walked together up the stairs. When Frankie returned, I said to him, You turned night real quick. He snorted a laugh. Oh, well, we can't have that siren in here. With the torchers yelling like that, every street bugger would have come to her rescue. Mrs. Green a torch singer? Well, I learned she was Mrs. Connor Green just now when she came in here. I'd only seen her as Lil Fanny, singing lead for the jazz band at the Tin Spoon. The Tin Spoon, I said. Tiny Paul's joint. That's where Green is selling his liquor. Say, you think that's where she met her husband? I laughed. You're the real sleuth, Frankie. He made a sarcastic bow. I shook my head. You're telling me you escorted our little Georgia out just to avoid a bit of hot water? Frankie flashed and said, What are you talking about, Malone? I was never good with emotions, but it was plain that Frankie had instantly fallen for the girl. So what if I had more to squeeze out of her? I asked. What more could you possibly want from little Fanny? She can't have anything to do with Green's mess. Let's see if I have any. Okay, yeah. I don't think I can contradict that. I considered Frankie's point. Maybe she was unrelated to this case. I shrugged and stood up from the bar stool. What had just happened was quite the ruckus. It seemed like my cue to move along. Let's look around. I grabbed the wine bottle on the bar and examined its label. It featured a picture of grapes and the words "sacramental use only." Frankie looked at me with a spark in his eye. Go ahead, he said. Give it a swig. No, I don't think I will. I shook my head. Too much. He scoffed and grabbed the bottle from me, turning it through his hands. I suppose you only like that bootleg paint. Well, I'll have you know that rabbits charge more than a nickel for this beauty. Only this type of Napa wine is made from that Zinfandel grape. It has a unique aroma. I'd been trying to learn more about wine. Seemed everyone knew their stuff but me. I know that what Frank had said about the origin of the grape as he set the bottle back down on the bar. You don't even drink. Since when do you know grapes? Since when do you know grapes? I chided. Frankie let out a bellied laugh. Some of these grapes are older than you, Malone, and I've known about them since I was small tot. It's why I'm so good at my job, you know. Frankie sighed. Too bad more folks can't taste them. That woman's league is the devil. A woman's Christian temperance. Aren't you done with the sauce? I asked. Sure, he said. I'm dry now, but I'm not done slinging it. He grabbed the bottle and twirled it around in his hand with surprising deft. And I've no right to stop others either. He put the bottle down, took a breath, and then said in a calm tone, Those women don't understand. Prohibition doesn't make anyone stop. It just makes them a criminal. I turned back to Frankie, asked about notes. Yeah, turn away. Let's look around the bar. All the bottles. But I guess I should be going. Yeah. The worn stairs led to the outside world. I was heading up the stairs when Frankie called after me. So, what are you going to do? I'd been thinking about little Fanny, about my sister, about little Fanny. I suppose thieving mobsters had people who cared about them, and she'd been wearing Louis's old jacket, so perhaps Green and Louis had been closer than I realized. I guess I'll take Connor Green's bait, I replied. I've got nothing better on the stove, and he might need the help. Something still stinks, though. Well, what's your plan? Frankie asked. The way I see it, I have 3 goals right now. Green hired me for a job, find a guy who wrote the letter. That's the basic part. But you want more? Asked Frankie. I nodded. Green's a shady character. I have to learn about him. Who is this guy? Dig in his past. I can't go back to him blind. And then there's something about his bootlegging. How'd Green get a connection like that? What's his source exactly? Squeezing that lemon might give me more juice. That sounds alright, he replied. So, where is it you're off to? I've got 3 leads. That bootlegger stable, who Green claims sent him the letter, the Tin Spoon Lodge, where I might learn more about Green's rum-running schemes, and Mrs. Green, who could give me more dirt on her husband. Frankie nodded his approval. Well, if you're ever stuck, come back and see me. You can never solve anything without talking it over. I smiled and went up the stairs. Alright, where to go next? Stable's barber shop. Let's go to Tin Spoon. The Tin Spoon Lounge was a speakeasy in North Beach run by Tony Paul, the gangster that Green had put in with. I'd never been there. The mob keeps a tight lip on their houses, but I figured it would be a good place to chase Green's bootlegging story. Yeah, let's go there. I gave my address and lodged in the back of the seat of the taxicab. I thought a good way to pass the journey might be a chat with the driver. Okay, let's talk. This time. You hear the latest about Shoeless Joe? Shoeless Joe? He asked. Gave an interview in Milwaukee. Still says he's innocent. What a racket. Shoeless Joe Jackson was one of the baseball's all-time greatest players, but in the 1919, he was part of the White Sox team that had been accused of intentionally losing the World Series, fixing the match for East Coast gamblers like Arnold Rothstein. The scandal's magnitude was so enormous that every American was gripped by the reports in the newspapers, whether they were fans of baseball or not. Although the team had been acquitted in a public trial, baseball insiders still claimed the fix had been real. Other White Sox players, including Shoeless Joe, were forever banned by the league. No, 8 White Sox players, okay. Throughout the ordeal, Joe had maintained his innocence, and he was suing his former team for back pay that he hadn't received after being banned. Most baseball fans preferred to think of themselves as insiders, and since insiders thought Shoeless Joe was guilty, so did they. Lawsuit starts in a few days, the driver rambled on. I can't believe the guy on this one. Thinks he can ruin a sport, profit from it, and then sue the league? Why, I hope one of the lawyers socks him in the jaw. His rambling continued as we rolled to the stop. I left the taxicab and wasn't sure if the driver had even noticed. I opened the cab door in front of a North Beach warehouse with a wooden sign. The sign's text was too worn for me to decipher any of its English, but a small gray spoon was still visible below the letters. I rapped my knuckles twice over the metal door. The panel just above my head slid sideways to reveal a pair of eyes. The eyes looked me up and down, then just stared ahead. They were black and held no emotion. The room beyond was dimly lit, so I couldn't see much of their surrounding face. I cleared my throat. Then a rumbling voice emerged from behind the door. Feel full, young cops, feel no distress, and all our great thoughts drinking less. I looked at the eyes, still unmoving. I understood. The doorman wanted a password. I thought I might have something in my notes that could help. Okay, what do we have? Use as password. Just a password? I don't think that... Oh dear. Statements. Okay, let's try this. I don't know what that is, but it ain't... Oh no, wait. I don't know what that is, but it ain't the password, came the response. The small window shut with a thud. Prohibition was a joke in San Francisco, and smoked speakeasies would let just about anyone through the door. But the mobs once weren't as relaxed with their rules. I knew I wouldn't enter until I'd said the correct response. I wondered who I could ask about the speakeasy password. Okay, in that case, I just need to leave and go to Green's house? Probably Green's house. I think we should talk to his wife first. Green's house might contain more clues about his past. or some reason a threatening letter would come his way. And if I got lucky, Mrs. Green would be there to pump with more questions. Go there. The Greens' apartment was a section of an old Western Addition mansion. The owners had divided it for struggling families to rent after the 1906 fire. Once downtown has been rebuilt, people of means moved out of the high area. Recent immigrants, mainly from Japan, rented most of the apartment in this part of town. Alright. We have a lot of investigating to do here. I think I'm gonna end this episode of Case of Distrust right here. This looks beautiful. Very original, unique art style. I really love the soundtrack. This is absolutely gorgeous. And the murder mystery, it's always fast. Well, not sure if it's murder yet, but I assume it's going to be at some point. But mystery anyway. This is very intriguing, very interesting. I'm gonna be playing more of this on this channel within the next few weeks. Also, I will be taking a break from Broken Sword, the Angel of Death, because that game has some serious technical issues and it glitched on me and now I can't get anywhere and it's just so annoying that I'm gonna leave it be for a while. Maybe get back to it at some point, but not right now. There are more interesting games for me to play. So yeah, this is Case of Distrust, available on Steam, and if you like this, let me know. Thanks for watching this episode. I hope you had a great day, and I'll see you again next time.